The cameras flash. The tourists froze, completely stunned.
No.
And just like that, the media world had a brand new obsession.
Oh, it was a total spectacle.
Right. I mean, just imagine this scene for a second. You have the iconic Bellagio fountains soaring into the warm night sky, a high-stakes craps table buzzing on a crowded Las Vegas casino floor, and right in the middle of it all, one of the most polarizing figures in modern American politics, weaving through the slot machines in a pristine white wedding gown and flat white sneakers.
It is a striking, honestly, almost surreal visual, because what you're describing is the absolute collision of two entirely different universes.
Yeah.
You have the rigid, high-stakes world of Washington political power crashing headfirst into the neon-lit, reality television-style spectacle of celebrity culture.
Welcome to Starscope Report. You're joining Jordan and Jamie as we uncover Hollywood drama, music industry shakeups, and viral influencer scandals. From red carpet surprises to social media controversies, we dive deep into the stories behind the fame.
And today's deep dive is definitely one for the books.
Absolutely. We are unpacking a massive stack of sources today surrounding one specific viral headline that exploded across everything from TMZ to the Columbia Journalism Review. And that headline is, Marjorie Taylor Greene marries Brian Glenn at surprise Las Vegas wedding.
Which is just, I mean, it's a lot to process.
It is. Now, just as a quick disclaimer for you before we get into this, we are exploring some highly charged political figures today involving the MBA movement and Donald Trump. But I want to make it unequivocally clear, we are not taking any sides here.
Right. No endorsements, no political bias.
Exactly. Our mission is just to impartially report the facts from our source material and explore the fascinating intersection of politics, media, and celebrity culture. So, okay, let's unpack this. Because what is so captivating about this story isn't just the fact that a 52-year-old former U.S. representative and a 57-year-old conservative journalist decided to tie the knot at a craps table in Sin City.
No, it's everything that led up to that moment.
Right. And the immense political fallout that happened right alongside it.
Because to understand how they ended up at the Bellagio on July 28, 2026, you really have to look at the genesis of their entire relationship.
Yeah, let's go back to the beginning.
This is a story about the mechanics of modern brand building, and it starts back in 2022 on the Donald Trump campaign trail.
Okay, let's set the scene there because the environment is crucial for you to understand. In 2022, Marjorie Taylor Greene is this incredibly prominent, staunchly pro-Trump Congresswoman representing Georgia's 14th district. She is an absolute powerhouse in populist politics.
And Brian Glenn at the time is a broadcaster. He had previously been with Right Side Broadcasting, which is, famous for streaming hours upon hours of raw Trump rallies.
Right, exactly.
And he later became the chief White House correspondent for the MAGI-aligned network, Real America's Voice. So they're constantly in the exact same orbit.
And importantly, they actually meet at one of those Trump rallies.
What's fascinating here is how Glenn described that initial meeting later to the Washington Post. It tells you a lot about the myth-making machine of populist politics. He didn't just say, he was impressed by her policy platform.
No, he used some wild language.
He really did. Highly specific, almost mythical language. He called her mystical like a unicorn.
A unicorn. I mean, that is quite the first impression for a sitting member of Congress.
It really is. He went on to tell the press that the public doesn't see the side of her that he does, insisting that outside of the political arena, she's sweet. They essentially bonded over a shared lifestyle, a mutual love of intense exercise routines, music, and obviously conservative politics.
But there is a massive complication here that the sources highlight. In 2022, when they met, both of them were actually married to other people.
Right.
Greene was married to her husband of 27 years, Perry Greene, and Glenn was married to his wife, Carrie Michelle Glenn. And the timelines get very, very interesting because right around the exact same time in late 2022, both of their respective spouses filed for divorce.
Which naturally ignited an absolute firestorm of rumors in Washington and the political media sphere. When the press started asking questions, Brian Glenn actually took to social media to emphatically deny that they were romantically involved.
Wait, he denied it?
Oh, completely. His explanation at the time was that he was simply assisting her with a reality-style television series about her life.
A reality show?
Yeah, a show that notably never actually materialized.
Wait, hold on. This is what I can't get past, and it's something I really want you to analyze for us. You have a White House correspondent dating a sitting member of Congress.
Yeah, the optics are wild.
If we look at this objectively, that is like a film critic getting caught openly dating the lead actor of the movie they're supposed to be reviewing for the public.
Yeah.
It completely shatters the barrier between the observer and the subject. How does a working journalist justify that kind of blurred line?
Well, you are evaluating him by traditional journalistic standards. But the key to understanding Brian Glenn is realizing that he never claimed to play by those rules.
Okay, fair point.
The concept of an objective adversarial press doesn't really apply to this specific ecosystem. In an interview with the Columbia Journalism Review, Glenn outright admitted to wearing an activist hat.
Wow.
He claimed he doesn't do fake news, but he operates from a perspective of wanting what he believes is best for the country.
But doesn't that just completely destroy the definition of journalism? Like, if you're wearing an activist hat, you aren't reporting the news. You're basically functioning as in-house public relations.
Exactly.
And Greene herself even leaned into this. In a 2023 interview, she admitted that because Glenn is from the media industry, he was a fantastic resource for explaining how things work behind the cameras. She literally said, and I quote, "So maybe I'm falling in love with the press."
Oh, wow.
Right. That isn't a free press holding power to account. That's political power, marrying the press to control the narrative.
It is exactly that, and it speaks to Glenn's background, which honestly wasn't even originally political. Before he was walking the White House lawn, he spent years in Texas doing lifestyle television. He hosted morning shows. He was wrestling MMA fighters on live television for entertainment value.
I did not know that.
Yeah. The sources point out that he unapologetically uses Botox and a stem cell moisturizer. He is, first and foremost, a showman who understands the visual language of television.
And that showmanship, that deep understanding of visual narrative, is what ultimately leads us to the main event. Because when they finally took the relationship public in 2023 and then got engaged in December of 2025, they were essentially merging their personal, political, and media brands into one massive entity.
And that merging of personal and political lives set the stage for a wedding that perfectly encapsulated their unconventional trajectory.
Which brings us directly to July 28, 2026, the wedding at the Bellagio in Las Vegas.
And not just anywhere in the Bellagio. They were at the Terrazza di Sogno, the Terrace of Dreams.
It sounds like a movie set. The photos from the sources show a highly curated aesthetic. Greene is wearing this stunning floor-length white gown. It has lace-capped sleeves, a deep V-top featuring illusion fabric, and she is carrying this vibrant bouquet of white, red, and pink flowers.
And Glenn is matching her energy with a classic black tuxedo, a black bow tie, and a red and white boutonniere.
The production value of the ceremony alone is fascinating. They designed it to be totally cinematic. Greene didn't even walk down the aisle to traditional bridal music.
No, she walked out to a modern track, Ordinary, by Alex Warren.
And as the vows concluded, right on cue, the massive Bellagio fountains erupted in the background. The sources note they were perfectly synced first to Ed Sheeran's Perfect, and then closing out with Frank Sinatra's Fly Me to the Moon.
It's incredibly romantic and traditional on the surface, but that serene, traditional romance did not last long at all.
Not even a little bit. Because almost immediately after the vows, the entire vibe flips. With a dedicated cameraman and several kids in tow, the newlyweds storm the bustling casino floor.
Still in their full, formal wedding attire.
Yes. They sit down at a high-stakes craps table, they play some roulette, they hit the slot machines for about 10 minutes, and then they casually stroll off to dinner at Spago.
It projects this deliberate image of a carefree, spontaneous Vegas elopement. It's a whimsical, relatable detour from their normally high-stakes, intense political lives. It tells their audience, see, we know how to have fun.
Right, but there is a major catch to that narrative of spontaneity. If you look at Clark County online records, they confirm that the couple actually pulled their marriage license days prior, on July 24.
So it was pre-planned.
Exactly. This wasn't exactly a spur-of-the-moment, let's run to the casino decision. It is highly choreographed. It's like throwing a highly choreographed flash mob in a mall and trying to pass it off to the crowd as a spontaneous dance break. They knew exactly what they were doing, and they brought a cameraman to ensure the public saw it.
And because that level of curation was so obvious, the public reaction to the resulting photos was incredibly intense.
Oh, the internet had a field day.
Every single detail of the imagery was heavily scrutinized, which brings us to the most viral element of the entire weekend. But before we get into that, if you're loving these Hollywood twists and political media shakeups, make sure you're subscribed to Starscope Report. We've got even crazier stories ahead, and you won't want to miss them.
Yes, hit that subscribe button. Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting. Let's talk about the sneakers.
The sneakers.
Yes. To navigate those massive, crowded Vegas casino floors, Greene decided to ditch the traditional bridal heels. The photos show her hauling through the tourists, standing at the craps table, wearing these casual, flat white sneakers, entirely visible under her formal white gown.
Which, if we are just looking at this pragmatically, makes total sense. I mean, walking miles through a Vegas casino in stilettos is a nightmare.
Oh, absolutely. My feet hurt just thinking about walking the length of the Bellagio in heels. But the internet does not care about comfort. The internet was merciless.
They really were.
Critics ruthlessly mocked the jarring juxtaposition of this tight, elegant, formal dress paired with casual sneakers. One highly viral post on X sarcastically quote-tweeted a photo of her at the craps table, labeling the entire look pure class.
It was a massive wave of mockery. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, what makes the specific scrutiny over her wardrobe so deeply fascinating and honestly deeply ironic is Brian Glenn's own history as a White House correspondent.
Yes. I was looking at these photos of her getting dragged for wearing sneakers at the Bellagio, and all I could think about was Brian Glenn in the Oval Office back in February 2025.
Exactly. For our listener who might not remember, Glenn actually went massively viral himself during an Oval Office meeting between Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky.
I remember this.
Since the war in Ukraine began, Zelensky has famously worn military-style tactical clothing, what Glenn specifically referred to as war garb, to visually represent that his country is fighting for survival.
But Glenn aggressively took issue with that aesthetic. During that February meeting, Glenn confronted Zelensky right there in the Oval Office, repeatedly demanding to know why he wouldn't wear a suit.
Right.
He literally asked a wartime president, "Do you own a suit? A lot of Americans have problems with you not respecting the dignity of his office." It was a highly combative media moment. And then fast forward to August 2025, Zelensky visits Washington again, this time wearing a black suit, and Glenn publicly praises him on social media for looking fabulous.
So you see the through line here. Glenn made traditional decorum and aesthetic respect a central pillar of his reporting. But, let me play devil's advocate for a second.
Okay, let's hear it.
There is a legitimate argument to be made that the Oval Office, the symbolic heart of American executive power, demands a baseline level of formal respect, regardless of your country's circumstances. A Las Vegas casino floor, on the other hand, is practically defined by its lack of rules. You can't really compare a bilateral diplomatic meeting to a post-wedding craps game.
I completely see that distinction, but I don't think this is really about the venue. I think it's about the brand you choose to build. If you, as a public figure, build your entire media persona on being a relentless enforcer of traditional aesthetics, if you weaponize decorum against international leaders in high-stakes environments, you lose the grace to enjoy a casual footwear moment yourself without getting called out.
That's a very fair point.
It is like being the strictest, most rigid dress code enforcer at a fancy country club, only to be caught a month later wearing cheap flip-flops to a black tie gala. Your critics are inevitably going to use your own weapons against you.
And they absolutely did. But the mockery from the left-wing internet over a pair of sneakers is honestly the least of their worries, because the intense public scrutiny they are currently facing isn't just coming from their traditional political opponents.
No, it's not.
It is coming from their own former allies. And that explains the real reason they are seeking refuge in Las Vegas in the first place.
This is where the story shifts from a celebrity wedding to a massive political earthquake. And that's not even the wildest part, because Marjorie Taylor Greene is no longer a sitting member of Congress.
Right.
She officially resigned on January 5, 2026. And the catalyst for that resignation was a nasty, highly public, and frankly shocking rift with Donald Trump himself.
Which was a seismic shock to the political landscape. Since she arrived on Capitol Hill in 2021, Greene was undeniably one of Trump's most ardent, vocal, and loyal supporters.
Oh, absolutely.
But the relationship completely fractured over a highly specific issue. Greene, along with several other conservative figures, became a vocal critic of how the Justice Department handled the release of the Jeffrey Epstein case files. She publicly argued that Trump was too focused on foreign policy and wasn't pushing the domestic populist agenda hard enough.
And if there is one thing we know about the modern political ecosystem, it's that loyalty is demanded unequivocally. Trump did not take that criticism well. The sources detail how he publicly dubbed her a traitor and went so far as to threaten to financially and politically support a GOP challenger to her House seat.
When you are operating in a populist movement, purity spirals are inevitable. You cannot step out of line, even on a single issue, without risking total excommunication.
But Greene refused to back down. She stated she had too much self-respect to endure a hateful, draining primary campaign against a president she had spent years fighting for. The quote she gave was incredibly revealing about the psychology of these political alliances.
What did she say?
She said, "I refuse to be a battered wife hoping it all goes away and gets better. So instead of fighting a losing battle against the machine she helped build, she simply walked away."
And that fracture put Brian Glenn in an impossible position. Remember, his entire career at that point, his identity as a broadcaster for Real America's Voice was built on being the ultimate Trump insider. He was the guy at the rallies, he was the guy in the briefing room. But suddenly, his fiancée is public enemy #1 to the very base he broadcasts to. In November of 2025, Glenn posted a photo of himself standing entirely alone in an empty arena after a Trump campaign rally. He captioned the image saying, "It pretty much represents where I'm at right now."
It is a stunning visual of total isolation.
Yeah.
He was caught directly between his personal life and the political movement that made him famous.
Yeah.
Ultimately, he made his choice. On May 7, 2026, Glenn stepped aside from his high-profile role as a White House correspondent. He told his network he was done with the grueling fly-back-and-forth thing to Washington, D.C., and he moved down to Greene's hometown of Rome, Georgia.
Where they have effectively built their own independent media ecosystem, completely insulated from the Capitol. Real America's Voice actually built a broadcasting studio right inside Greene's house.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So now, instead of roaming the White House lawn shouting questions at world leaders, Glenn's daily routine looks very different. He cooks breakfast, scrambled eggs, and bacon. He watches birds on an AI-powered smart feeder in their yard. And then the two of them broadcast a morning radio show called American Sunrise Early Edition directly from their living room.
But stepping away from Washington, D.C. didn't stop the backlash. The vitriol they were receiving now is coming directly from the Marries base itself. Glenn gave an incredibly candid, almost raw quote to the Columbia Journalism Review about this experience.
And this quote is wild.
It is. He said it was deeply hurtful to see people flip overnight. And then he dropped this absolute bombshell line, speaking directly about his former political allies. He said, and I quote, "That's what the Marries does, they all grift."
I mean, that is an astonishing statement coming from someone who is deeply embedded in the exact center of that world.
Totally.
To understand why he said that, you have to look at the mechanics of the outrage economy. The business model of hyper-partisan media, the grift he is referring to, relies on perpetual anger and absolute loyalty.
Because if you step out of line, the monetization stops. The algorithm punishes nuance.
Exactly. Glenn talked about suffering from chaos fatigue and violence fatigue from the constant vitriol. He noted that the moment you deviate from the base's orthodoxy, they unleash the bots. They deploy armies of trolls specifically designed to eliminate your existence in the digital space. When Greene and Glenn stopped being useful to the most extreme end of that algorithmic machine, the machine turned its sights on them.
So what does this all mean? You really have to ask yourself, have they actually stepped away from the political machine, or have they just relocated it? They traded the U.S. Capitol for a living room studio in Georgia, and they traded the White House press briefing room for a Vegas craps table.
It's an interesting pivot.
Honestly, it feels like a rock band announcing an epic, highly dramatic breakup because of creative differences, only to immediately start a podcast together in their basement the very next day. They haven't left the ecosystem, they've just changed their specific roles within it.
That is a perfect analogy. They haven't escaped the media. They are attempting a rebrand. They have pivoted from being the newsmakers in Washington to being commentators in Georgia. Glenn even mentioned a desire to bring apolitical guests onto their new morning show to make it a breath of fresh air.
Interesting.
It is a deliberate attempt to soften their image, to project relatability, and to insulate themselves from the chaos they used to actively participate in.
It is an incredible journey when you step back and look at it as a single, continuous narrative. We've watched a high-profile political alliance, forged at a 2022 campaign rally, slowly morph into a romantic partnership. We saw the intense blending of a hard-charging politician and an entertainment-driven journalist, completely blurring the lines of objective reporting.
And we watched that exact same partnership endure a brutal, highly public exile from the center of the political stage, facing intense backlash from the very base they used to champion.
And it all culminated in this cinematic, carefully curated Las Vegas wedding. The soaring Bellagio fountains, the white gown, the tuxedo, the spontaneous-looking but legally pre-planned craps table celebration, and yes, those infamous white sneakers that drew the mockery of the entire internet. It is a story of branding, survival, and adaptation in the modern media age.
Which brings us to the core tension of this entire saga, and it's something I really want you, the listener, to mull over long after you finish listening today.
Yeah, let's hear it.
When media personalities and politicians build their entire identities, their careers, and their massive audiences on intense, unyielding political loyalty, what happens to their public brands and their personal lives when those alliances inevitably fracture? Can you ever truly step away from a media ecosystem that you helped create? Or will the algorithms and the audiences you fed always demand their pound of flesh?
That is the ultimate double-edged sword of modern fame. You can run from the Capitol all the way to a casino floor in Vegas, but you can never truly outrun the brand you built.
So true.
You've been listening to Starscope Report, where Jordan and Jamie uncover the stories shaping Hollywood, music, and pop culture. Thanks for tuning in to this deep dive, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that keep the stars shining. Bring your next stack of sources, and we will be right here waiting to dive in.